And welcome, I am the Archivist, and it's Valentine's Day, or close enough to put this video up. So I'm gonna do what the rest of the world does around this time, and judge fictional couples. Yes, some of these couples you may have a completely different reaction towards, especially if they've been through several writers and a hell of a long time, such as some of the couples I definitely will be talking about. So, without really going into rambling, let's jump right into the honorable mentions. Honorable mentions: Superman and Lois Lane, and Selina Kyle and Bruce Wayne. The only reason I even have honorable mentions on this list is because there were three couples I really couldn't choose for my number 5 slot. Let's start off. Clark Kent and Lois Lane are probably the biggest pairing in the history of comics. There's 1,000,001 articles about why they were comics' best couple, and they really are. However, to me, that best pair comes primarily from nostalgia rather than a writing point of view. There are phenomenal stories about their relationship. I mean, Superman for Tomorrow, my favorite Superman story, wouldn't exist if he didn't lose Lois in that event. Nor would my favorite Batman-Superman crossover, where he has to call Batman to help him find her when he's suffering from kryptonite poisoning. Even Injustice actually hinges on our love for the characters together in the beginning, so that is part of the problem. All three of those, and other great stories about the romance, hinge on Lois getting damseled or their relationship being threatened, as opposed to really just seeing a nice baseline. So, quite honestly, as much as I do love the couple, there's always been something that niggled at me because of it. Not to mention that, yes, the current pairing of Wonder Woman and Superman is actually written fairly well and brings a really rather unique dichotomy that Lois could never add to the human side of Kal-El. Rather, it enhances his connection, showing that he's more a people person than Wonder Woman is when it comes to their societies. Superman and Lois Lane are still a very powerful couple and amazing, phenomenal characters in their own right. They have times where they show us that Lois and Clark are the best couple, but it's few and far between in my opinion. On the flip side, Batman and Catwoman are best when they're rarely shown to be an official relationship. They're the quintessential friends with benefits story, but that's where they shined as a pair. The playful aspect of their relationship with her flirting and him puddling his pants because of it is truly great. Oddly, it's because of the Catwoman solo series from the 90s, 2000s era that cuts them down from being on my top 5. See, the relationship is so damn good in it, showing that Bruce does love Selina and Selina does love Bruce, but when it comes down to it, both of them know they can never be in a lasting relationship. Oh, friends, definitely. Partners, God, there's some great stories about them buddying up. But it's in the chase that drives them. I know a lot of people truly love this couple and ship it to high ends, but just like with Superman and Lois, I can see why they would. But it's hard to root for them together when we want that, because of how much they play off each other's anti-hero and anti-villain tendencies during that will they won't they. It's like Ross and Rachel from Friends. You want the will they won't they to end, with them getting together, but then it's just going to be all about, okay, they have blah. Yet, this is also the reason that it was really stupid in the New 52 when they seemed to be just friends with benefits without showing benefits for either of them besides the sex. Granted, I think that's changed since the first few issues of Catwoman that I read, but still, there's just not enough gusto with them together to actually say that they are great together as a couple. However, my heart still does melt when Batman bought Selina's baby a teddy bear. Yeah. Let's go to the real list. Number 5, Peter Parker and Mary Jane Watson. Yes, I'm starting with probably a heated decision since they beat out my other honorable mentions, but here's the thing. Both Batman and Superman are brought higher by their respective mates. But Spider-Man is a book about relationships, regardless of what Marvel's creative teams want to say. We aspire to be Superman and Batman, but we can relate to Peter Parker, even when web-slinging. Even before they were a couple, even after they erased their marriage, Peter needed MJ. When written well, MJ is her own woman, strong enough to be with Peter Parker, but not so weak as to break down every other issue about being married to Spider-Man. They are friends who've taken the extra step. Jerry Conway was the writer who started their relationship, but it was after building their platonic friendship so much that it was a no-brainer that they should try being a couple. For instance, you have the night Gwen Stacy died, and MJ was there at his and Harry's apartment. I think this really cemented MJ opening up as a character, especially to Peter, who just lost the woman he's loved, being compassionate enough or guilty enough to stay with him. This bit is actually reflected heartbreakingly well in Jeff Loeb's Spider-Man Blue, in which Peter, feeling blue on Valentine's Day, long after Gwen's death, he records a tape explaining how he and Gwen met and how much he still loved Gwen. A really touching story that ends with MJ, who he is married to, by the way, walking into the room having listened to him spill his heart out into the tape recorder. She's not mad though, but she shows the understanding and tells Peter to tell Gwen that she misses her too. It really gets to me just how well that growth works between, like 30 and 40 years in between both scenes I mentioned. But that brings up the very obvious question. What about Gwen Stacy? It's no secret that Gwen Stacy was Peter Parker's first love, and everything an outsider nerd would ever want in a woman. Yet, it was a very high school love. Her death actually cemented Spider-Man, and comics in general, entering into more mature reading, or adulthood. It doesn't have to be so much about maturity, but entering into a third dimension. And that's why Mary Jane and Peter's relationship doesn't have the foundation of romantic love and instant, man, I really want to tap that, but was able to build on friendship and platonic love. Now, of course, there's the big elephant in the room when speaking about Mary Jane and Peter's love life, and all you comic fans know about it. Yeah, right, that's what I mean. I'm not going to touch on that. However, after that event, there is a great scene at the end of Spider Island showing that the platonic love I brought up before was and is still there regardless of editorial interference. Where they are right now, I will let you figure out. Just to let you know, MJ is over in the Iron Man books right now. Yeah, the reason they're so low on the list is because after they got married, and even a little bit before, writers really began to lose hold on their relationship, pushing her into very much extremes. She's either doing her own thing, being a strong woman who's meh towards Spidey, or she's being a total damsel, and not even a damsel. She's always been kind of a damsel in distress because of who she is, but even on the more side, they make her weaker because every other second is, I don't know if I can deal with being Spider-Man's beau. But others have talked about this before, just as with couple power couples I mentioned, so I'll leave it at that and let's move on. Number 4. Apollo and Midnighter. The fanbase is still small in knowing exactly who these two characters are. Yes, I'm aware they usually make an appearance on LGBT lists and articles, especially since Midnighter got his own series, but honestly, this couple is probably the least sexually charged on this list. Okay, for a quick summary, Apollo and Midnighter were bioengineered and experimented on. Apollo gaining basic Superman archetypal powers, flight, super strength, and other fun soup stuff. And Midnighter is given enhanced resilience, another heart, and the ability to anticipate opponents' moves, though he's very Batman-y in his outlook, but he does love him some violence and killing. So right there you've got an obvious as to why some people like bringing it up. To quote, "Oh my god, it's a canon gay Superman and Batman coupling. My OTP lives!" Yes and no. See, the archetypes are there, but the characters are actually very much themselves, and that's why their interaction is so important as to why they work. First and foremost, unlike 90% of couples, regardless of gender of those involved, they aren't perpetually having sex to show that they're in a relationship. Oh, they do have a very active sex life, but it's related through their banter and their time together rather than being just showing it off, which happens a lot in comics and media in general. With these characters, you get them as partners. And like what I brought up earlier, you have a groundwork there before it becomes a full-blown relationship. Yet, it's within the relationship that you see someone as unstrung as Midnighter, who's basically Tig from Sons of Anarchy, if you've ever seen that show, pairing off with someone who has a soldier morality, but instead of butting heads, that tension becomes a relationship, where you can get playful dialogue and some legitimately touching scenes. But really, this is a relationship that in context works better than any way I can summarize it. And plus, they've adopted a kid together. You want to talk about commitment. Now, if you don't want to read the original Stormwatch or The Authority, DC did do a new 52 for Stormwatch, which allowed for some Wildstorm people to really get prominent. Well, no, they didn't get prominent because no one read Stormwatch. And the first issue was very meh, but eventually got into bringing about these two characters back into a relationship again. Or rather, for the first time in that continuity. It's watered down and different from their origin, or their original. It's still decent enough. though this version is most definitely wouldn't be on this list at all. If you want to go with a start-to-finish love story on this list that I really liked, Catherine Kane and Maggie Sawyer in the New 52 Batwoman comic, Hulkling and Wiccan in Young Avengers, Julie Powers and Carolina Dean in the Runaways / Avengers Academy thing. Let's see, also Cassandra, whatever the hell her name is, Cassie, Wonder Girl, and Connor Kent, Con-El there, Superboy. You know, those would also be good on this list, but I personally think Apollo and Midnighter are better than all of them. Yeah, think about that. Moving on. Number 3, Hawkeye and Mockingbird, and Green Arrow and Black Canary. Another tie? Well, this tie is primarily because of my personal love for Hawkeye and Mockingbird. I can admit that. My very first comics were my parents' huge collection of 12 long boxes from the early to mid-80s. And Hawkeye was my favorite character. So my foray into the character was his solo miniseries where he met, fought, teamed up with, and then eloped with Bobby Morse, Mockingbird. Yeah, it may be the weirdest entry because we don't see a long courtship or even a solid foundation before they run off and get married. Yet, within the West Coast Avengers, that's how it works, because you see the couple change when their ideology shifts, especially with possible murder. And then they killed her off and everything changes. So, yes, literally the only reason they are on here is because I'm a sucker for personal taste. So, on to the official third slot, Oliver Queen and Dinah Lance. They're probably the most screwed up relationship on this list. But that's what makes them so great. While every other couple on this list has some severe problems throughout their relationship history, Ollie and Dinah truly take the cake so far. So why are they on this list? Because even after they got divorced, even after all the crap that's happened in their relationship, the love was and is still there. The best example of why they are one of my favorite couples is from the single-issue revival of the Green Arrow comic during Blackest Night, Green Arrow number 30. Yes, a lot of happenings in this and callbacks, and basically just going for the worst parts of their relationship because Green Arrow is now a Black Lantern in it, and he's kind of wanting to eat her emotions. Yet, what works so well is that because Ollie had come back from the dead before, his mind is still trapped in the zombie Black Lantern body that's trying to kill and hurt Dinah. It's a powerful issue showing all of Ollie's faults, like banging basically any woman that came along, and so much more, including the illegitimate kid, Connor. Well, I think he's technically legitimized by becoming Green Arrow, but we're not getting into that. So it's a perfect summary and progression of their relationship, and even someone who hasn't had the years with these two characters could probably get a little heartbroken because of it. Actually, speaking of being heartbroken, Jello would be completely pissed if I failed to mention that part of the heart of Injustice Year 1 and 2 stems from the dynamic between Dinah and Ollie, and especially a scene where Dinah and Harley are talking about their relationships with their prospective men that just breaks my heart. So yes, Ollie and Dinah goes onto this list because of their dysfunctional history. Hey, be glad I'm not adding Scott Summers and any of the women. So suck it, Gene. Number 2, Snow White and Bigby Wolf. This list is going on a lot longer than I wanted it to, so I'm going to keep this one quick. Snow White and Bigby are a phenomenal couple, and the comic they're from, Fables, has at its root the relationship between these two. Since I'm doing my daily vlog of Fables a day, go and listen to that to see all the developments and my personal thoughts on how these two work. And they're one of the few couples on this list that didn't lose momentum after they had kids. Well, that's not true. Number 1. Marco and Alana. Okay, while Bigby and Snow got more interesting as a couple after Snow got pregnant, and their tale grew even more throughout the 150 issues, Saga literally starts with Alana giving birth. Seriously, best first line in comic history. I'd show it to you, but I want you to read the damn series. After the last issue of Fables hit, Saga became my favorite currently ongoing comic book series. If you haven't read it, then you need to see why they're such an interesting couple. The relationship was founded when Alana got into trashy Space Danielle Steele novels. When talking with Jello about my list, she actually brought up that they aren't neat characters as a couple because they're basically just Romeo and Juliet in the first trade with a baby. And essentially, yes, the first trade, they're trying to escape the planet after Alana gives birth to Hazel, their daughter, is very much a lot of, we're from two different worlds. However, the volume builds who these characters are, so there's a solid start to when their adventure becomes more bombastic, challenging their relationship, to the point of, and yes, this is a huge spoiler, he actually hits her. But that is about 20 issues after the start or so. But either way, the book itself is just over 30 issues right now, but nowhere close to being done, at least to my knowledge. So for the #1 couple spot, go out and marathon read this series. You'll laugh, you'll cry, you'll beg for a goose doll. And that's my list. Yes, it's my first top list, and there's a hell of a lot more than 5 couples in it, but hey, that just means there's more for you to ponder on. If you agree or disagree with me, leave a comment. Make your case about who should have been on this list or your favorite moments of any couples in comics. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and if you really want to support us, we do have a Patreon, where you can basically become a full-time producer and let me know what to do. Thanks for watching, Inklings.